So let's jump into this recap, and we will be recapping again episode 21 of Worlds Beyond Number, the Taboo of Passage. And we always cut that recap out, so if you happen to find yourself just on the recap of this episode, but you're interested in our full episode, it'll be linked down in the description box below. Alrighty, y'all, and bear with me because this is, just a massive wall of notes that I'm going to be reading from, so may occasionally need to pause to clear my throat or the like. So let's get into it. Again, this is the Taboo of Passage. So we pick up in this episode with the arrival of about 40 or more skyships, a bunch of them from the Saraz Imperium. And these are landing in various places in the Citadel. A bunch of them are going to Haverwort, but we also know that some are going to basically each platform of the, cyclical clockwork platforms of the Citadel. And the ones that go in Haverwort, basically like all these soldiers storm out, and the crew notices, the crew meaning Suvi, Ursulon, and Ame, notices that people are being like drug out of Haverwort back to these skyships. And so the crew's trying to get a pulse on like what this is. Suvi wants to know if this is something that, or rather Aabria wants to know if this is something that Suvi would be used to, if she's seen something like this before. And she's basically told that like it feels normal, but it doesn't feel normal. Like seeing somebody arrested is not something new to her, but this feels a bit off. It feels like, I think the analogy they gave was like, sure, you've seen helicopters in the sky before, but have you been in close proximity to like an actual police raid? And so that's what it feels like. They also notice that all of like the gates are being shut. Like the Citadel is going on a lockdown. Because of this, Ursulon wants to know if they will be able to leave, because as we know, Ame needs to get out and make it to this meeting that is happening in 3 days. So Suvi's like, let's go find out. And they can either go straight to like go talk to Steel, who again has arrived back with this, fleet of skyships coming in. So if they want to go straight talk to her, or if they want to stop by the Tower of the Glove, aka Suvi's house, to pick up all of the things that they had basically requested. Which we'll talk more about this later, but Suvi had requested a bunch of books and information. So they decide for now it's more imperative to go talk to Steel as soon as possible. So they head to the Tower of the Sword and see that, this massive skyship is basically docked at this tower, because the Tower of the Sword specifically has like this big bridge up top where essentially basically 2 skyships could dock, is the way I understood it at least. Excuse me. So they arrive and they can see that there's a big to-do basically at the Tower of the Sword, and Suvi, pulls aside one guard that's like leaving and is like, hey, like what's going on? And the guard says that they found out there's basically some traitors within the Citadel. The guard says that none of them are within, Malakanth Court itself, but these traitors have had access to certain wizards' research. So like they're going to trying to find these traitors basically. And so they keep moving on, going to the Tower of the Sword, excuse me. And inside, Suvi notices Sonder, who is Steele's husband, and also the wizard Slate is there, who Suvi has some, familiarity with, some acquaintance with. So Slate speaks to them, and it's a very tense moment. And Ame just kind of speaks out of turn, saying like, hey, what's going on here? And it's like very awkward because again, this is like a very tense moment, and this witch that is not of this place is kind of like stepping out of line, if you will. So Suvi kind of like tries to, mend things. And basically they're like getting filled in about who are these people with you, Suvi? And she's like, this is Bear, he's my protector, and, Ame is this witch. And then they ask about her fox, and Ame says, oh, don't worry about him. He just comes and goes as he pleases. And she's kind of like stepped out of place again with that statement, causing like more heads to kind of turn. Because, here again is a witch who is basically kind of flaunting the fact that she can come and go as she pleases. So getting kind of awkward, but again, Suvi kind of steps in and tries to smooth things over, and says that, hey, that fox is not a summoned beast. It's like a real live fox. And Slate at this point is like, okay, excuse me a moment. And she steps away. So Sonder then fills them in and is like, hey, it's going to be one of those days. Steele has a lot on her plate. She's stressed out, going through a lot. And Suvi, she's like upset that she isn't able to share this news with you herself, but she's busy basically. So Slate then returns and is like, hey, can you guys come upstairs with me? And 4 soldiers accompany her. And so then all of them start to head upstairs. And Ursulon does an insight check. And Brennan tells him that he gets like a bad feeling as they're going. And he can basically feel that these soldiers are ready to like act should they need to. Like basically ready to jump them if things go south. And he can kind of feel this energy the most from the wizard Slate herself. So they go up the stairs, they arrive at Steele's office, and a lot's going on. It's cluttered, it's busy, there are tons of people in this room, and Steele looks, stressed, but she is standing over like a map, classic like Moore map with all the pieces all over it. Basically having a tense conversation with a bunch of people. Suvi doesn't recognize any of the people she's speaking to, but she can kind of tell who they are by their station, kind of by how they're dressed. So there is an older woman wearing white robes with a big staff and an amulet of the Sarah Imperium on it. So Suvi recognizes her as the Grand Vizier of the Empire, basically like the court mage of the royal family. And she is the Wizard Gray. There's also a robed automaton made of brass, and then there are 2 people who look like soldiers. Soldiers maybe isn't the right word, but there's 2 people of the Imperium. One is like a general who is decorated with lots of medals, and then one is like a deputy of war, like a bureaucrat, not like the top brass of the position, but maybe like one step down. Steele clearly isn't comfortable that all of these people are in her house. And the way Brennan describes it is like the airship landed here and they just decided to like have this meeting in the first possible place, which was Steele's tower. But she's like, hey, we should just go to the Pyrian Dome. Like that's where everyone is being assembled. And that's where we'll have all of the materials we need as far as scrying. Like, can we get out of here? That's where we should go. And the Suvi can tell that like the area on the map that they are focused on is like a border between Gauthmai and Ruve. So the maps are basically gathered up and everyone gets prepared to go to the Pyrian Dome. And as this happens, we've got some insight checks being made, and Suvi notices that the Grand Vizier is like kind of keeping eyes on her and her group, and so are those generals. They're doing the same thing, but the automaton is not focused on them. They instead are focused on the people they're with. So the automaton is watching the Grand Vizier and these generals. So Steele approaches she approaches Suvi and Ame and Ursulon and basically says that, hey, a lot's going on and it's kind of unnerving because this is a rare occasion where I don't know where this investigation is leading. So, typically she kind of knows what she's getting into. Like, for example, if there's a traitor, like she knows who it is and she knows why. In this case, she doesn't know what they're going to find. So this is like really bad. And she says the war is gonna start up again. It's just a matter of how quickly. So they tell Steele that like, hey, Ame needs to travel out of here. She needs to get to Toma immediately. Are we like allowed to leave? And Steele says like, yes, you can, but like the Citadel cannot facilitate that travel for you. But like if you have a way to go, like feel free, you're welcome to. Steele just says like we have no way to guarantee your safe passage right now through like the normal channels. So Ame then basically describes like what's going on with her, why this matter is so important. And Steele is like, wait, what? And Steele clearly wants some more information because Ame tells her that like the fate of humanity and which relations kind of are at stake here. So Ame kind of does her best to explain the situation, but doesn't like fully explain because she can tell Steele doesn't know certain things. Like we find out that Steele apparently didn't know about this Coven of Elders. So Ahmed kind of tries to tread the line of like being honest, but not just revealing everything since she doesn't need to. So Steele is like, I'm so sorry. Like, I know this is important, but like, can we please continue this conversation tomorrow? Because Steele's getting pulled in a million directions and she needs to go to the Pyrian Dome to deal with whatever is happening right now. So she's like, I know how important it is, but like, please, can we talk tomorrow? And Steele says that, I know you're the new witch of Toma. And so, far be it from me to suggest any wisdom that you yourself don't see, but just know that there are a dozen ways that I can make a witch see anything I want her to see. So, like, you need to be really careful, and we've got to work as a team to figure this out because there are definitely powers out there that would have a lot to gain from scaring Ame and manipulating her. But she does say, like, the heavens and earth could put all their power into hurting you, but we would stop them. So we're going to talk tomorrow and nothing will happen to you. And then she takes her leave. So they leave, and as they leave, basically everyone in that group acknowledges Suvi, like the Grand Vizier and the general and the automaton. However, the deputy minister of war does not acknowledge Suvi, like in a very kind of rude situation. So then Suvi and Co leave as well, and they're going to head back to Suvi's tower. As they do, they arrive in, and they essentially see first all of the things that they had asked to be gathered. So Ursulon had asked for a shirt similar to the one that Page Julia was wearing. And so he has that, and it's this shirt that is basically kind of enchanted with the sky. So like it's a blue shirt, but there are clouds kind of moving, and the clouds will react to your touch or if you blow on them. Really cool. Excuse me. And then there is a small note from Zhao Court that has no other information on it besides basically some names and dates written. And these are the names of the paintings that Grandmother Rin took of these spirits. So we have Kashali-Lamasu, Ranbu-Frog Spirit, and Toton-Forge Spirit. And then additionally, we have all of the stuff Suvi requested, which is basically on 3 subjects. She wanted information about the stranger, that spirit. She wanted information on the Aquadarte. I never know if I'm saying that right. Aquadarte and the Antivoli. And finally, she wanted information on Ghost and Flicker if they had arrived to the Citadel. So Brennan has her roll 3 investigation checks and basically adds 4 to them, which is representative of Page Julia's skill to investigate and find these things. And Aabria rolls abysmally. Like, I think it was like 2 3s and a 5 or something like that. But she gets a little bit of a bonus, and Ame was actually able to give her a little bit of a guidance dice as well for the stranger, but still, all of the rolls were less than 10, so not great. They basically get a few books that are basically encyclopedias about certain spirits that there's really nothing helpful to find in. But interestingly, we do find out that apparently a lot of the books about the stranger, or at least that maybe would have contained information about the stranger, had already been checked out from the library. Then as far as the Aquadarte and the Antivoli, Suvi basically gets like a 5th grade textbook about these things. So similarly, not helpful. And finally, regarding Ghost and Flicker, she finds out that there has been no record of a ghost arriving to the Citadel. So Suvi kind of like writes her a little note giving her some tips on how to research better. And the crew then discusses what their next moves should be. Ame wants to go ahead and leave right now. She does not want to wait till tomorrow to speak with Steele because time is of the essence. However, they're talking about if they can't really utilize the Citadel's travel gates, like what options do they really have, because Toma is far away. She needs to meet with the elders in the North Pole in 3 days, and without basically portal travel, there's no way to get to Toma in that time. So they talk about why Steele maybe said that she couldn't guarantee safe passage, and they talk about the taboo of passage. And just like Suvi explains that during times of war, one of the most crucial things is being able to move troops around expeditiously. So when war heats up like this, one of the first things that happens is portal travel is like attacked and messed with, so that if you try it, you may end up somewhere that you didn't intend to. They do still have the device that the wizard Sly gave them, which will basically get them to the North Pole. So that part is handled. It's just that Ame wants to go to Toma first. So even after all this conversation, Ame is like, I still want to go now. And Suvi's like, we should really wait to talk to Steele. She might be able to help us. It's only an extra 12 hours. And if Steele can help us, that will be worth it. But Ame's like, no, I think we should go. And so they look to Ursulon, and Ursulon actually sides with Suvi, thinking like, Steel might be able to help us. I think it's worth it if we stay. So Ame concedes and says, okay, we'll wait. But she says, I'm going to go pack and prepare. And she kind of heads off and goes to her room. So Suvi and Ursulon decide if they could go get an update on Silver. Suvi wants to get the update, and Ursulon says he'll come with her. So we cut to Ame in her room, who's basically having like an existential conversation with the fox that turns into like this heart to heart, because the fox can tell that she's like nervous and scared due to everything that's going on. And because of the connection they have, like the fox can feel that too. So they have this heart to heart, and the fox is like, you look like a fox that's caught in a trap. And I can feel that. And Ame tells the fox that, it's okay to be scared. Like being scared is good because it teaches us to like avoid certain things. And this like really short circuits the fox's brain by thinking like, oh, like it can be okay to be scared. Like it serves a purpose. And so he has to go lie down. So Ame then packs everything up and is thinking back to like everything that's happened to her here. And she specifically kind of lands on these thoughts about the perfect sapphire that Sly had told her about with grandmother Rin. And then again remembers the taboo of passage. Um, and then she recalls in grandmother Rin's voice this quote from her, which was, "Do not set foot upon the road. Something looms out there in the dark. A crunch of leaves underfoot. Some foxes only realize they've stepped in a snare once they're already in it." We then cut back to Suvi and Ursulon, who are approaching the Pyrian Dome to try to find more information. And they actually run into the wizard Slate once more. Suvi says, like, hey, I'm just looking for a list of who made it back from Fort Kyrian. Excuse me. And Slate says that, oh, Fort Kyrian. Like, she's surprised to hear that name. Like, her concerns and the things that are happening now are, like, far beyond Fort Kyrian. And Slate's like, Steele would know that information. And, this meeting that she's in shouldn't last too much longer. So, like, I can take you up there afterwards if you'd like to speak with her. And Suvi then explains that, like, hey, yeah, no, like, I don't really want to talk to Steele about this. Like, I'm just trying to find out if a certain somebody made it back safe. And Slate can kind of pick up on what she's talking about. And they kind of have, like, a cute little conversation about, like, spilling the tea and the rumors and the young romances. Excuse me. And it's a nice little kind of less tense moment between these two characters after what was going on earlier. And Slate does say that while the first attack on Fort Kyrian had massive casualties, like a lot of lives were lost, of the reinforcements that were sent to deal with it after that, which Silver would have been a part of, there were only very minor losses. So he's probably fine. And the only little thing that happens at the end of this moment is Suvi on a nat 20 perception, I believe. Maybe it was an insight, but I think it was a perception. Notices that, excuse me, there's a little like fun, playful moment where like Slate is teasing Suvi and kind of like playfully shoves her. And so Suvi's like, Ursulon, kill her or something like that. And he says like, not this time. And so there's this moment where Suvi rolls that nat 20 and can tell that Slate has cast Detect Magic and knows that Ursulon is wearing a glamour or an illusion. But like nothing comes of that moment. Suvi just clocks it. So then Suvi and Ursulon return back to the Tower of the Glove, and Ursulon trains with his tower shield while Suvi goes off to sleep. And while he's training, he does notice that on either side of it, it can clearly like attach to other tower shields to make like a wall. And so he trains with that for a little bit and then switches to the other shield, the one that Ame found. It's like this golden, smaller shield. And as he's going to collect it, he does notice on this nearby table where there is, some food and produce, there is a little basket of cream white mushrooms. And he looks at this and then looks down at the shield and can kind of see his reflection in it, looking a lot like Suvi. And he says he snacks on some of those mushrooms and kind of is inspired to go find some paint. And so he does. And then he describes he wants to paint this red tree with blue fruit on the cover of the shield. And Brennan asks for a performance check with advantage and also says that something nearby lends you a D10 inspiration. So Lou rolls and he gets a 31 total on this. And he literally enters a flow state while painting. And he says that, this painting basically represents his honor and his quest and Sir Curran. And he's choosing red for Ame and for her kindness and generosity. And he's choosing blue for Suvi for her courage and charm. And it's a tree of this world, not a spiritual tree, but there is a little mushroom at its base. And Ursulon can feel like the magic flowing from him as he paints, and he's like using his magical breath in this way. So he has lain some sort of spell into this shield via this painting, but he doesn't know what it is, but he does know that the shield is enchanted. Well, okay. I don't know if Ursulon knows that the shield is enchanted, but we do. Lou knows. Ursulon may or may not. And so he can kind of feel this inspiration as he's doing this, and he looks out the window. And there's this beautiful moment where Brennan basically describes that, his sister once walked that road that he can see outside this very window, and he can feel that she left this piece of magic, this inspiration here to find him. And that's where the episode ends. Fantastic episode. But again, episode 21 of Worlds Beyond Number, The Taboo of Passage. So again, if you find yourself just on the recap, you can typically find a link to our full discussion down below. There won't really be one this week since my co-host is not with me, but I will be sharing a very brief collection of my thoughts. But anyways, thank you for checking out the recap if you did.